Hi everyone. Today I'm going to go through 3 different types of embroidery stroke darning attachments that you can use on your machine. We've got a modern, I don't think this is even a branded foot. This is a modern hopping foot, as in it hops. So this foot obviously attaches to your machine, and this bar at the top hooks over the top of your needle clamp. And the idea of this is when the needle goes down, the foot is engaged, and then as the needle comes up, it lifts that foot ever so slightly, hence hopping foot. We also have a vintage, normally this is for a featherweight, but actually you can put it on any low shank machine. It's only tiny compared to the big modern hopping foot, and it does have a spring, but it goes down. I'm not too keen on this foot because it works more on pressure than anything else, but I'm going to show you how to use that with quilting. But if you push it down, this little spring here will allow it to go down. The spring, however, has no involvement in the needle bar at all. So this is why I'm not keen on it. But what we also have is this little fella here that looks like a spring that's come off of a clothes peg. It's called a stop axe, and it does some really wonderful magic. So I'm going to show you this one last. I'm also going to show you just quickly how to set up your machine for embroidery and darning. And then I'm going to do a quick example on tension so that you can start to work out your tension. And then some examples on how to draw with your machine, how to quilt with your machine, and how to darn with your machine as well. So this is a slightly bigger video because I'm using 3 different attachments and doing quick examples of all 3. So let's start. First thing first, I'm going to start with the hopping foot, but let me just move these out the way. Let's work on the feet. Now this example is with my 201, which means my 201, I can drop the feed dogs. I'm not going to do this for this video because you might have a machine that doesn't allow your feed dogs to drop. The reason why we want the feed dogs out of the way is because your feed dogs feed the fabric. So when you've got a normal presser foot on, your feed dogs pull the fabric through so that you can do straight lines and you can angle it for curves. With free motion embroidery or free motion quilting or for darning, we don't want to use the feet at all because our hands start to move the fabric. So our hands become the feed dogs and can feed the fabric through in any direction that we choose. So what we don't want is the feed dogs affecting that motion, that free motion movement. So if you have a machine where the feed dogs drop them out the way. If you don't, there's a couple of options that you've got. First option is to set your feed dogs to the very shortest possible stitch. That means that your feed dogs will generally just go straight up and down as opposed to moving forwards and backwards. So for this video, I've set my 201 to have the shortest possible stitch, just so that it has a less effect on your fabric. Another option, if you've got that available to you, is with a feed dog cover plate. Now, depending on the machine as to what type of cover plate there is, for a 201, this just slots in and clicks in and closes. Now my feed dog, it doesn't matter what stitch length my feed dogs are set at, the cover plate allows the needle to go down, obviously, but the fabric does not engage at all with your feed dog. So that is one option if you have that available to you. Or you can do a hack. Now, a hack I found has been quite useful, especially on other machines, is to get yourself some greaseproof paper. Slide your greaseproof paper over. Actually, that is the right way around. Let's try it the right way around. If you cover greaseproof paper over your machine, one, it does not have It doesn't cause any damage to your machine. And now I'm using a treadle for this example, but even if you had your machine and it's electric and it's in a wooden base, you can tape it down just using some standard masking tape or something that's not going to cause a sticky residue on the wood or the base or the machine. But you can tape that down. Mine's a creased bit, but it doesn't matter. If you tape it down, that, and I'll show you, the grease proof allows your fabric to slide really, really easily, and it is preventing your feed dogs from digging into your fabric. From a needle perspective, once you've taped it all up, you can just punch your needle straight through, and that creates a hole, and your needle can go up and down through the grease proof, and it has no effect on your feed dogs. So that is also an option, and it's a cheap hack. So feed dogs done. Now let's work on tension. So my feed dogs are set to the very shortest stitch. What we want to do is test the tension. So I've just got a piece of calico. Calico is great, by the way, for if you've just started off with free motion embroidery, or you just want to start having a practice, then calico is a really good cheap fabric to use because it's slightly stiffer. Because one of the things that we need is tension on our fabric. So calico is really good because it's stiff. Don't use like silk or something delicate and beautiful. Cheap bit of calico is absolutely perfect. So what we're going to do, let's load up our standard modern low shank hopping foot. And what happens is when the needle goes up and down, it's going to hit this spring here, and that allows it to hop. And we want it to hop because when it hops, it allows the fabric to move during that hopping motion. That's the reasoning behind it. Step one, nice and easy. Let's go this way. What you want to be able to do, first thing first, is drop your feed dogs. Always remember to drop your feed dogs because your feed dogs will engage your tension. I know that's just out of camera, but it allows your tension discs to kick in. If your foot is up, you've got no tension on your top thread at all. So we always want to make sure that our top thread is engaged with the tension discs. But what that means is I can still move that, even though my presser foot is down, I can still move that underneath. So the general rule is, first of all, to pick up your thread. So I am just going to roll that round and pick up the bottom thread. So you can see that that's just happened. I may change camera angles at some point, just so that you can see it if you need to see it at a different angle. So I've pulled up my top thread. Now I can just hold on to them. The first thing I'm going to test is tension, just to make sure my tension's right for my feet, for doing free motion embroidery. And what we're looking for, and it's something I always go by, it's a good little thing to remember. What we're looking for is eyelashes. And I know that sounds a bit bonkers, but eyelashes are what we're looking for. So my presser foot is down, and I'm just going to lock in just a couple of stitches. I know that that's bagging a bit, but we're not worrying about that. I'm going to start some stitching. I'm just doing a test stitch for now. So as I say, calico is a great way to just test your stitches. And I'm just going to do a couple of circles, or not even circles, they're hoopy loopies, just to test tension. So I'm just going to go up and round. As I say, I'm just using the treadle at the moment just to test. Now I know my threads are sticking out and we would normally cut those, but this is a tester at the moment, so I'm not worrying about any of that. So I want to have a look if we've got any eyelashes. So that looks pretty good, yeah? It looks straight, well, it's straightish. No eyelashes. But if I turn it over, there is this horrible nastiness on the back. This tells me, so if you've got these like funkiness going on, and actually you can start seeing, well, it doesn't look like an eyelash on the back, but if you see all this horribleness, that gives you an indication that the tension on the top is too loose. So I'm going to tighten up my tension. So let's go down here. I'm not going to pull my thread up because we are just testing. So I am just going to increase my tension, and I'm going to try the same thing again. Just a couple of loopy-dee loops. Okay. So we know if we've got funkiness going on underneath, it means our top tension is too loose. We'll hold this up to the camera. I tightened it up, and now we have eyelashes. Eyelashes mean that the top tension is too tight. So that's the way I remember. I don't really worry about that mash-upness on the back. If I've got eyelashes on the top, it means my top tension is too tight. So I am going to now loosen that off a bit. Now we will try again. Press a foot down. Do a couple of loopy-dee loops. And let's try again. Okay. We have no eyelashes on the top. We have, apart from that little bit, we have no eyelashes on the bottom. So that's pretty much what I want to go by in terms of tension. It's an even stitch. Bear in mind, you are the feed dogs. So if you move your fabric quickly, you will get a long stitch. If you move it a little bit, you will get a short stitch. But tension is the first thing to just check. So if it's all mashy up underneath, that means your tension is too loose. If you have these beautiful little eyelashes on the top, that means your tension is too tight. And then it's just a matter of tweaking until you get no mash up underneath and no eyelashes on the top. So that's the first thing to check. I'm now happy with my tension. So now, still using the hopping foot, now I'm going to just take my stitch for a walk. And this is just a way of loosening up how you work with free motion embroidery. So if I put my hoop, I'm using a hoop now because I can grip it with two hands, and it also creates quite a taut fabric. I can't get that underneath. So if I lift, I can, but my needle just needs to go up a little bit. And we can take our stitch for a walk now. With, let me just move that back. With a foot, a hoop, that can sometimes, oh, you can't see it. There you go. With a hoop, depending on your size of your hoop, you might end up banging the end of the harp of the machine. So it means thinking imaginatively on how you do your drawing. So for my machine, I'm going to do it about there, and we'll do something, I'm not sure yet, probably a daisy. I had to do a daisy the other day, so we will just keep with a daisy. My tension is fine now because I've done a test. So now presser foot is down. Now I'm going to just slowly by hand bring up my top tension. My bottom thread to the top. Now, if you watch any other video, it says the first couple of stitches are just on the top here. And let me move that a bit closer. So the first couple of stitches is just to lock that in. It locks in both threads at the same time. So try to go in the same place. Mine looks a bit, but that's okay. Actually, no, I'm not going to do a daisy. I'm literally going to take my thread for a walk. Presser foot is down, so we are just going to go for a little walk. And I will show you, let me just I'm just moving my needle far enough away so that I can just chop those off. So one of the easiest things to remember with free motion embroidery or free motion drawing or quilting or however you want to call it is to try and make your needle go as fast as possible, but make your hands go as slow as possible. And that's a bit tricky, and that's why something like setting up this this kind of setup with an embroidery hoop with just some cheap calico is just to have a practice so that you can get used to moving your hands really slowly, but your treadle, or if you've got an electric machine, to go as slow as possible. And you kind of disconnect the speed of the needle with the speed of your hand, because remember, you are the feed dogs now. So I am going to go really slowly, but my treadle is going very, very fast. And I'm just taking my stitch for a walk. I'm not thinking about it. I'm just going for a walk. And this is where you can start getting used to just the flow and movement of your fingers. I'm just doing swirly whirliness. And you can see with the hopping foot, every time that needle goes up, it's giving it a bit of a break underneath so that I can do my movement with my fabric. So I'm not thinking about what I'm drawing. I'm hardly paying attention to it. I am just taking my stitching for a little wander around. And it just gives you some practice on how to, so if I just turn that around, there you go. So that I just took my stitching for a walk. It's good to just have a practice with just getting used to a flow, and then you can start doing some drawings. You can do some actual drawings with it, and I'll give you an example of that. So I'm just going to lift my foot up, take my needle up, and then just get rid of that stitching. And then you can see, there you go. I took my stitch for a little happy walk. What you can also do, and I'm just going to show it as an example. I'm not going to do it on video because you'll be bored out your heads if you watch it. But if I just show you what I mean. So you can probably just about see I've done a pencil drawing of a trainer. So I will do this afterwards, and I'll put it up as a link on YouTube. What you can do is actually draw out what you want to draw with your stitching, and you can follow your lines. So you can start practicing with, let me turn it that way so you can see, there you go. So you can actually start practicing following lines using your hopping foot. So that's a cool thing just to start practicing on. And because you're using calico, then, oh no, my needle. That's because I went in the wrong way. Because you're using calico, it's cheap fabric anyway, so it's not going to have too much of an issue in terms of cost of fabric. Right, now we will swap. And I know I'm rushing, but it's also because I'm trying to show you 3 different attachments. This one. So I've just done a very basic quilt sandwich. So we've got some scrap fabrics, we've got a layer of batting, and then we've got, actually I think that's a bit of a pillowcase. So we have now created a little teeny tiny quilting sandwich. And I'm going to show you, take this one off, and I'll do a quick demonstration of this little fella here. I'm not particularly keen on this. I think it's too tiny, but if this is all you've got, it will still do the same thing. If you have a look at the hoop, which is teeny tiny, compared to a modern hoop, which is like massive. But this does do one thing, which I do think is quite cool. So if you look at the side, it's, hang on, hold it from this angle. If you look at the side, it's got quite a big hole here for your clamp. This allows you to clamp it at different angles, and that's what we're going to do. So if I hook that in and just tighten it up, I'm going to move the camera ever so slightly. No, that's not going to work. All right, we'll do it a different way. Let's see if you can do it. You can see this. So if I untighten, I can lift, or I can adjust. So that's what this little foot can do. I can actually adjust the pressure on the quilt sandwich. We're going to start right bang in the middle. So if I put my presser foot down, that pushes that quite a lot. Now with this foot, you need it to be just, let me lift it up. So there you go. I haven't clamped that down yet, but you can exert quite a bit of force before you tighten it up, or you can release it. With this foot, you need it to just be gently on it, because you still want to be able to move the fabric underneath. Same thing again, we are going to lift it up and we are going to just pick up the thread from underneath. If you don't have enough pressure on your quilt sandwich, you won't be able to pick up the bottom thread. So let me just do that. So this works very similarly to the hopping foot. It's just, it doesn't hop, it just kind of gently rests. And this is why I don't particularly like it, or it just doesn't seem to do much for me. But same thing again, we're going to lock some stitches in, and then we will try and move it around a bit. So I'm just going to just do it to about there, just so I can get these threads out of the way. You want to try and always to trim these top threads off, because then it's just not in the way. There you go. So now let's carry on. So as I say, it's doing a similar sort of thing to the hopping foot. It's just not physically hopping, but I suppose it's giving you some guide. I'm doing a very dodgy looking flower, but it will still work with the quilting, with a quilting sandwich. While it's just like that, something that might be of help to you, and I will pull this back so that you can see this. Sometimes I will use a quilting glove. And this isn't a proper quilting glove. This is actually a heat resistant, what is it called? I stole it from my daughter. She uses this glove for using straighteners. And this protects her hand so that she doesn't burn her hand on straighteners. But actually, these little rubber markers, little rubber spots, are heat-resistant spots if you're using straighteners. But they're really, really good at gripping your fabric. And they're cheap. But you can also use gardening gloves or anything that's got some sort of rubber spot on it. So if I just adjust back, so now I've got a bit more grip on my quilting sandwich, so I can now move that around ish. If I was using two quilting gloves, it would be even easier, but it does allow me, if I was wearing the other glove, it does allow me to grip. And if you were using a really big piece of quilting, this allows you to do the grip. So it's a great little thing. I don't know where she got it from, but if you look at heat resistant gloves for hair straighteners or garden gloves, anything with some sort of grip on it, it doesn't have to be a quilting glove, although quilting gloves are designed specifically for grabbing your fabric anyway. So whatever, I suppose whatever's going to be the cheapest for you. But this is a really good idea. I love it. So that was that one. Let's get this out the way. And then I'm going to show you something quite magical now. So we've already done some drawing with our hopping foot. And we can see we've done some quilting with this little baby foot. Now I'm going to show you some darning. And let's take this foot off. Yeah, it's just an annoying little foot. I don't like it. What we are going to do is you're going to get your standard hinged foot, and we're going to put the hinged foot on. Now I haven't changed the tension, I haven't touched the tension at all, but I had my tension set for quilting. I don't want it set for quilting now, so let's grab a teeny bit of fabric. I just want to check my tension is fine. I am going to set my feed dogs back to normal stitching, and I'm just going to do a test with my foot just to make sure that my tension is set back to normal. Let's have a quick look on the back. That's absolutely fine. I might even tweak that a little bit more and just do another check. So your machine is normally set for normal stitching, like what I'm doing. I tweaked it for free motion embroidery. I want to just, yeah, that looks fine. Right, now we're going to talk about the stop axe. Well, we're going to talk about the stop axe, but we're also going to do some funky darning at the same time. And let me adjust the camera. Okay, cool. This is the stop axe. So if you have one of these, amazing. You probably don't realize what it is, in the same way that I didn't know what it was. I thought it was just a bit of spring from an old clothes peg. But what you will find, let's make sure that it doesn't blur for you. Stupid camera. No, okay, I'll have to hold it at this angle. What your stop axe does is this little fella twists, and it will twist down and up. What you will probably find, and let me just show you. That's how mine looked when I first got it. When I first found it, discovered it. And it was just set like that. But if you have a look at yours, you can start to unwind this section. You can see, on my stupid blurred video, you can see it unwinding. Okay? What this little fella does is it turns this foot into a free motion embroidery foot. This is where the magic comes in. And now that I know how to use this, it is amazing. So, presser foot is on, but this foot, if you hold it at this angle, this foot is going to connect between your bolt and your presser foot. It's a little bit fiddly, and I hated it when I first tried to put it on. I'm actually going to drop my presser foot a bit. So, presser foot, stop axe, bolt, and then try and do this on camera and screw it all in. Do it as tight as you can. So this little fella is just swinging about the back here. What this will do is that will, if I drop my needle a bit, that will swing in and engage with your needle bar. Or you disengage it so that your presser feet do its thing. So I have, from the video, you can see that I adjusted my my feed dogs back to normal stitching. But when I want to do some free motion embroidery, I literally just swing that across. Now, one thing to note about the stop axe, what it will actually do, because it engages with your needle bar, and because it is clamped on this side, it forces your presser foot to lift up naturally a bit more than it should. The instructions for the stop axe is to be able to lift your presser foot or force it. This is where you've got to be careful now. it forces your presser foot to lift more than it should. It suggests the maximum to lift your presser foot by is 3/16 of an inch, which, according to Google, means 5 millimeters maximum. Now, your machine might be able to do this, but if I drop my presser foot, I lift my presser foot, and if I lift it a little bit more, it moves ever so slightly. Some machines will do it, some machines won't do it, but that's what your stop axe is going to do, is just lift it ever so slightly. We want it to lift ever so slightly because that gives enough gap between your foot and your presser feet to be able to move your fabric sideways. Now, with mine, let's just do it without any fabric. See that? Oh, it actually clipped out of the way, which means I unwound it a bit too much. So my stop axe is not set up properly yet. So let's wind mine back in just ever. Oh no, wrong way. I did this off the camera and the whole thing fell off. So don't do that. Right, press the foot's up. Let's try that again. It's fiddly. It's one of those things that you need like 4 hands for. And I promise you, it is magic. Right. Try that again. Needle down. Well, let's not jam up the machine. Stupid. Right. Flick it over. Press the foot down. So I just want to show you before I put fabric in it. See that lift? Normally you don't have the lift if you are engaging with if your feed dogs are normally. So let me show you this with darning without mashing up my things, and then we'll see it. Okay, I have got a piece of broken denim pocket with a hole, and that's what I'm going to darn. If I flip it over, all I have done is I have put a patch on the back, and then I've fused some interfacing just to seal that patch down. And that is just another piece of denim, and you can see the color of the denim. So with darning, normally what you do is, because you've got a piece of fabric underneath, you stitch a rectangle around your hole, and then you darn, which means going up and down horizontally all the way across the hole, and then you turn, and then vertically you go across that way, and that creates basic darning. You can do this by hand, you can do this with a straight stitch, but it means getting your stitches very, very close together. With a stop axe or a hopping foot, you could use a hopping foot for it, but it does mean changing feet. But what you can do is both at the same time without changing any feet. And this is what we're going to do. So first thing first, stop axe is not engaged. All I'm going to do is a very quick rectangle. This is going to be the most messiest looking darning ever, but that's okay. So first off, I am just going to do a very basic rectangle around. I'll trim my threads afterwards. This is just an example, so it's allowed to be extremely messy. Right. Oh, I overshot. Right, let's go back there. So now I want to be able to go up and down, up and down, up and down. So now I'm going to engage my stop axe foot, because now I can use my hands and go, sorry, as many, oh, I missed the camera. So now I can go up and down without having to stop, start, lift the presser foot, spin, go back again, lift again, presser foot, you know. Now I can just go back and forth, quite messily because I haven't perfected darning yet, but the stop axe allows you to do that motion. So watch. See, as soon as I moved, as soon as that engaged, I lost connection. So let's get the treadle going. All the way down and all the way back up, because the stop axe is allowing my normal standard presser foot to lift up ever so slightly higher so that it disengages with my feed dogs and allows me to move the fabric in any direction that I want. So I'm just doing this delicately, and I'm just going back and forth, and I'm literally colouring in the rectangle that I made. I don't have to change presser feet. If I want to go back to using my normal presser foot, the 1/8 foot, I just disengage the stop axe. So I'm just going up and down, badly, but that's okay. Let's pop that there. Let's disengage that for now. Let's turn it. So you can see I've done this. So now I want to, for darning, you then go that way around. Engage my stop axe, and I'm literally going to uppy downy all the way across. Haven't changed presser feet. That's what makes the stop axe just so amazing. So it just makes, particularly darning, it just makes darning so much quicker. And then if you practice it, you can actually perfect it and it will look nice and pretty. It would also help if you used the right colour thread for the project that you're darning, but I was using black because I thought that would show up better on camera. I'm just going to carry on, and I'm just going to finish colouring in my badly darned pocket hole. Now if you were using, or if I was using, I'm going to just try and go backwards now, or back along my colouring in. If I was using the same colour thread as the denim, you wouldn't, you would see it a little bit, but you wouldn't see it that much. And I'll show you what this looks like on the underneath. So you can see how bad my darning is. But it's not about the darning, it's about how cool the stop axe is. Alright, let's leave it about there. And then pop that up. There is my darning. It's on denim, so if this was a real hole on a real piece of jeans, you have put so much reinforced thread on that you will never get a hole on this section again. If I turn it over, that's pretty much what I've been doing, like zigzag, like lines that way and then zigzags that way. So that's a terrible way of terrible example of what darning is. If you were doing this properly, you would make this super accurate, really straight line, or not straight lines, but lines going all the way across, and then mimicking the waft and the weft of your fabric. And if it was in blue, you wouldn't see it. But that's how cool the stop axe is. So if you are able to, or maybe have a look in your attachments box to have a look, you probably already have a stop axe, you just don't realize what's that for. And I didn't either, but this I think is quite brilliant, because all you're doing is having to engage and disengage, and it turns a normal presser foot into a hopping or darning foot. But I hope that's been helpful.